Okay, just to give you an update, because you need to know that. So all the guests have arrived. That's the good news. They were all running late because of the storms in certain parts of Joburg. They've all arrived, but we thought just give them a few minutes to settle in. So the call we've made is that we will start at 7:30, right? It's about 20 past-ish now, so you've got about 10 minutes. 7:30 is when we start. Thank you.
Chido changu Kura uchiye mwerera Gandara kora kaswibirira Buzira kora kafana na nerabu Ukama hunoti badaniza Newe makori akawanda Kana uchema Inozo moyo wangu buraziwa Kana uchema Inozo moyo wangu buraziwa Maine mwana Warere wakafamu sangu Apo mume murume aripata muziko Muzitari hondo Maine mwana Warere wakafamu sangu Apo mume murume aripata muziko Muzitari hondo Kana uchema Inozo moyo wangu buraziwa Kana uchema Inozo moyo wangu buraziwa Toyini mwana Warere wakafamu sangu Apo muwe murume aripata muziko Muzitari hondo Gandara kora kaswibirira
usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe, Mwari anewe kaneria, Mwari anewe. Kufirwa nemurume hangadzi, zvinona moyo wekushinga, usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe, usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe, Mwari anewe kaneria, Mwari anewe. Usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe, usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe, Mwari anewe kaneria, Mwari anewe. Upenyu imindupindu, ngwarira mhepo dzezviedzo, usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe. Usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe, Mwari anewe kaneria, Mwari anewe. Zenabwa kugara zenderera, usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe, usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe. Shinga moyo shinga, Mwari anewe. Harufu rune shanje, kutsaura vanodandana, usaore moyo hanzvadzi, Mwari anewe, usaore moyo kaneria, Mwari anewe. Shingaira kaneria, Mwari anewe.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
The conversation on the talking point. We're shining the spotlight on breast cancer this morning as part of our Breast Cancer Awareness Month campaign. We've got a number of specialists that are joining us for this conversation. Professor Carol Ann Ben, who's the head of she's no longer actually the head of the breast unit. So what's your official position now?
Well, I don't know. I suppose just a worker. Okay, so I ran...
The main problem that we have with this Western media argument is that proposition or government over-exaggerates the power that Western media has.
There's a specific streamline of information that happens when you have Facebook being located in one specific country.
The US government uses their specific associations and the media companies which belong in their countries to often indoctrinate their specific policies in different countries.
We say having these foreign equivalents in existence actually breeds a ground for more competition, right? Which is what we want to see, right? Even with our local social media platforms.
Change in the atmospheric circulation pattern. Now, what I mean by that is that you have certain kind of weather systems that produce more rainfall and others that produce less rainfall.
If you're active on social media and love SAfm, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAfm page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAfm.
Right. Maybe that's a cue to give big applause to everyone, to you guys. Yeah. So I'll tell you what, as I welcome you, I'm tempted to ask each one of you to look around and see who's in this auditorium. You want to look around and check who's here? I mean, you'll notice some people are familiar, you're familiar with them, some people you're not familiar with them. Just take a look. I want to check out who's the absentees here. Let's see who's not here. Actually, Donald Trump is not here. Oh my goodness. And it gets even more complicated as Ket Matala's also not here. They're still busy. And Brown Mogotsi is not here too. But listen, you guys are here. And that's important. You are here. So give yourself a big applause. So I can tell you, just so that you get the numbers right, this place takes about 300 people. It was oversubscribed, I think, about 10 days ago, before today. Obviously, there's some seats empty. We know there's been huge traffic jams in Joburg, as one can expect in the summers, and we've had particularly rainy summers in the last couple of years, right? So we understand that part. But for those of you who are here, I think it's just wonderful to be here and to have you guys here. But I want to give you perspective, and this is something I had a chat with our program manager and channel head yesterday, or this morning, in fact, that of all the things, right, and we can debate why we're here and what we're going to take out of it, but already, just the fact that we at SAfm are able to connect with you, the audience, that we cannot take for granted. Nothing ever happens without the audience. I want to tell you this. Yesterday, I went to Durban, and the Uber driver, I jump into the car, and he's like, "Are you that Ashraf Garda?" And I'm saying, yes. But he's got his dial locked onto SAfm, and he knows everything about the station. And here am I sitting, and I'm like feeling a bit dumb, like, yes, man, this guy knows more than me about current affairs issues. And I therefore called him and I said, you're like the professor of current affairs. And the only reason you are, because you are completely connected to SAfm in a way that is just amazing. So he's one. Last week at the social justice, the social summit, that part of G20, we had the same experiences. People came up in their numbers saying, hey, we are just so tuned in to SAfm in general. Of course, some of it listen to my program, but in general. So I think we can't take that for granted, that you are here, you're part of this audience, and you're a huge part of SAfm. That's one. But also today is a chance for the SAfm management to be here and to showcase themselves and to interact with you, the audience. And that's critically important too. And then, of course, the SABC management or SABC leadership, and many of them are here today. And that's critically important too as well, right? And then to move on further, there are a whole lot of other stakeholders, like presenters, like myself, and I look at people like Kathy, who just come in as a presenter, and there are producers, and many of them are here, right? And then I made the point about audience, and maybe in the course of the evening, we'll get to know other members of the audience. But, I mean, I already looked at, like, Golden Miles Buru, you can't miss him, no matter what, right? Always first in line, right? But also, I mean, I had this guy come up to me just now, and I'm like, who are you? And he's like, I am Peter Nyla. And says, you know, I'm a regular caller on your show. And nobody says Peter like him. I am Peter, right? That type of thing, right? So already in a few minutes, we make those connections, which I think are really, really important, right? But the big question to ask even now is, like, why the annual lecture? So the lecture is SAfm's way to establish a presence outside just the airwaves. The airwaves are critical, but as we know in today's world, when it comes to content creation, you have to do things very, very differently. It's not just radio linear. It's radio, it's video, it's tweets or X's, if you can call it that, and different platforms, right? And this way allows us to interact in a very intellectual way here, but still to a broader audience, because people are plugged in even now, and they're listening to us. So as I talk to you and I welcome you, I welcome them. People listening to SAfm live on the radio, people listening on our social media platforms, people listening on the SABC Plus platform, every one of them are absolutely connected to the program and to tonight, okay? So from that point of view, I think the fundamental role of this annual SAfm lecture is just critical. I was here last year, the first time back after being 5 years away, and it's like wonderful being a part of it, okay? And I would like to think that this lecture is agenda setting. It's not just a lecture in isolation, just for, what's the right word, like just for spaza. It's not for spaza. It is agenda setting. It can be quoted, it can be debated, it can be argued, and hopefully it can be carried through in terms of, let's call it resolutions, because we're all waiting for this national dialogue that seems to have gone on hold for a while. So maybe this is it. Maybe this is the type of conversations that government needs to plug into, because these are the conversations that truly, truly matter. So just a big question here. Firstly, how many of you listen to SAfm daily? Show of hands. I do. Some people are hesitating. You could get thrown out of here if you hesitate. Right. Good. How many of you seriously consider yourself part of the greater SAfm community? That means not just as a listener, you see yourself as part of this community. How many of you? I'm certainly doing it. We need to convert some other people here. Some people are like debating. We need to get to you, right? But listen, let me say this much. For every one of you, I want to say welcome. Welcome to you guys at the back. Welcome to all of you in front. To the bishop, who always I meet at event after event. Always great to see you. Welcome to every single one of you. And as I say welcome, I want you to applaud yourself, but I don't want this half-hearted, like, you know, that just doesn't work. But I haven't told you what to do. No, that's not the way we're going to do it. What I want you to do is this. I want you to make a noise for a full 1 minute. I mean, because can you do that? Can you stand up and make a 1 minute racket by applause? Can you do that? I'm going to do it. Let's do it. Right, let's go. Make noise. Woo! Yay! 1 minute. Go for it. Woo! That's it. Yay! Woo! There we are. Hey, okay, great. I wish you guys could hear Lebogang amongst the dinde. The way you did it was just the way I would want to do it. Absolutely terrific. Right, listen, the last thing, before we get into the formalities, is this. You do not want to have this event, this opportunity to just pass you by. You want it for the memory. So you know what you're going to do? You're going to do what I'm going to do. You're going to take a picture right away. Do a selfie with yourself and your chommies, right? Can you do that? Come on, we're not going to start without it. I need you guys for the record. I'm doing it. You better do it too. Yeah, I'm doing this with all of you guys. Take it with your friends. There we are. There, I'm going to cover all you guys in these pictures. Have you been taking your pictures? Good. There's no way you're going to go home and say, I wish I took a picture. Now, here's the last thing. Can you post those pictures on whichever social media platforms you choose, be it the Twitter or the X platform, be it Instagram, be it TikTok, be it LinkedIn as well, be it Facebook, whichever you choose, or the Threads platform, and tag SAfm Radio. You can tag me as well. I'm on all of those platforms. And use that hashtag. Andila, double check if I'm right. SAfm Annual Lecture 2025. I got that right? Yeah? So, hashtag SAfm Annual Lecture 2025. Can you do that? And when you do that, just say something like, we are here, man. I'm going to check who does it, later on. We are here. So, we are here. Hashtag SAfm Annual Lecture 2025. Tag SAfm Radio, tag me. And then, for the rest of the evening, whichever other comments you wish to make, just please go ahead and do so. All right, so that's where we are. But we need to get to the formalities of the real business of why we're here, the SAfm Annual Lecture. Having said that, I want to call all of you to stand once again. Not to clap, but to stand to attention. Can you do that, please? And this time, there is the two most powerful symbols we have in the country is our flag and our national anthem. So if you can give attention to South Africa's national anthem. Seated. Thank you. Woo! Always inspiring, always, absolutely. Right, we are, don't forget about the pictures and the videos. You can take whatever you like, hashtag SAfm Annual Lecture 2025, right? Let me then move on, and I'd like to call upon the chairperson of the SABC board, and that's Dr. Katu Ramakumba. If you can come up, please. And I do know that the SABC had a clean audit a few weeks ago. So, what a good time to talk to you. We could have a half an hour chat about that, right? If you can do that, thank you.
Good evening. And thank you very much, Ashraf, for steering the ship of this very important program. Mine is a quick one and a short one. I do not want to stand between you and the fountain of wisdom that will be shared here tonight. The guest of honor and our keynote speaker, Dr. Geraldine Fraser-Muleketi, Dr. Fraser's family that is joining us here tonight, our colleagues and our personally invited guests, including but not limited to the former SABC GCO, Mr. Madoda Mkakwe. I was joking with him outside that welcome back, prodigal son. Let me also welcome Prof. Anthony van Nieuwkerk, who is a professor of international and diplomacy studies at UNISA. Let me also welcome Bishop Mpluana, together with your wife, to this very important event. We are truly blessed to have you here. Let me also welcome Prof. Mieko Ikehame, who is a visiting professor at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Also, Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtinso, Ambassador Dikgang Ngopela, and Ms. Mashilwane, who is the CEO of MASA Auditors. Let me also take this time to welcome the SABC executive leadership that is present here today. I've seen the group executive for marketing and corporate communications, Mr. Gwejela, as well as the acting CFO, Mr. Matore. The SABC managers, and importantly, the business manager of the SABC Fortune Combo station, Mr. Tony Skolo, who is behind this event, this very important event, the conceptualization of this important platform for engagement in our society, as well as the facilitation of its successful hosting. We are forever grateful as the leadership of the SABC to you and the leadership of SAfm. Let me also take the moment to welcome the lecture discussants, Dr. Lebogang Pheko, as well as Mr. Ayabonga Chawe. We are grateful that the Commission borrowed you to us tonight to assist us in this conversation. And let me also welcome all the special guests, everybody in the room today, the SAfm presenters, who are facilitating and linking us to everybody out there in this very important conversation. We thank you very much, and those who are joining us through our SABC Plus digital and other digital platforms. To all the guests in the auditorium from the academic institutions, government, private sector, small businesses, and SABC clients and stakeholders, you are all welcome to this historic event. The SAfm public lecture was launched in 2023, which was addressed by the former Chief Justice Mogoeng. And we followed this up last year with a lecture that was delivered by Dr. Naledi Pandor as part of our celebrations of 30 years of democracy. We do so because these conversations enable us to take stock of the journey that has been traveled. But it also serves as a platform for reflections so that we can be able to identify where there have been missteps, and we can be able to reset and rethink the direction of where we must take this country as our way of giving back to those who gave a lot, including life, for us to live in a democratic South Africa. Today's lecture is being broadcast nationally, as I've indicated, on SAfm and streamed on SABC Plus. I emphasize SABC Plus because for us, as the leadership of the SABC, we see this as a flagship program, and we see it as a program that represents the future of video entertainment, both here in South Africa and globally. And we're investing a lot of effort there. To this end, we have just over 1.6 million subscribers, and I would like to challenge all of you seated here in this room and everybody who is listening on SAfm or you are watching us on SABC Plus, or well, if you have not joined us yet, my challenge to you is that you must download the app. It is free of charge, and it will enable you to access all the broadcasts that SABC provides across all the radio stations, across all the television stations. So there is that and much more. You will also be able to access historical content from our archive. So it's truly an asset at your disposal to track the history and the journey that we have traveled as a people, because the SABC does have that privilege of having been the broadcaster that has existed over the years. Of course, we must also acknowledge that the earlier years were not glorious because we were, by all accounts, a state broadcaster. But today, we can proudly say that we are a public media service broadcaster, and we are for the people. And ours is to create platforms for conversations, reflections, just as we're doing tonight. So let me then just indicate that in this year, 2025, the year which South Africa assumed and delivered successfully so the G20 presidency and the hosting of the G20 just this past weekend, we are very proud to once more be hosting this critical conversation with everybody who is joining us here physically tonight, but with everybody else who is joining us through the various platforms that we have. And today, we are very proud that in this year, and just after concluding this successful G20 summit, we will have decided to invite the Chancellor of the Nelson Mandela University, an outstanding community activist, leader, politician, academic, wife, mother, and grandmother, Dr. Geraldine Fraser Muleketi, to deliver this year's lecture. We are very proud and honored, Mama, for you to join us. She will be leading us in a conversation under the topic Confronting Inequality, Corruption, and Unemployment, the rebuilding of South Africa's social contract for inclusive and sustainable growth. At a point where our nation needs to confront inequality, corruption, and unemployment, we need to ask the hard questions. We need to look at ourselves in the mirror and reflect on rebuilding our social contract to ensure an inclusive, sustainable growth for our nation. The SABC, we endeavor to ensure that our radio stations, such as the SAfm and our OTT platform, SABC, are used to start conversations that impact society, whilst ensuring that everyone's voice can be heard. And it can be truer tonight, because we are not only going to benefit from the experiences and the knowledge from Dr. Muleketi, but we'll also have an opportunity to engage and inform and co-create our future as a nation. So we look forward to getting critical insights and nuggets of information from the lecture that can be used to create content on air which will help reset and redirect our nation towards an inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Let me take this moment to thank everybody for making the time to join us here. We know it's raining outside, robots are not working, but we were patient to get here. And we thank everybody who's also joining us through the various platforms. Thank you very much, Ashraf.
When you say, it's raining outside, and you say, thank you very much, Ashraf, you're going to say thanks for the rain. Like, I'm the deliverer of the rain, so I don't know about that. But anyway, we'll accept. Let me just say, is this okay? This thing had just dropped off here? Guys, just check out if that's okay. Let's just come off the... Yeah, so I thought maybe I'm the deliverer of rain, and maybe you want to thank me about that. Just by the way, talking about the SABC Plus app, who's downloaded the app already? I mean, I've got it. SABC Plus app, who's got it? I mean, we always say there's nothing for Mahala. That one is for Mahala. Like, why are you guys waiting? Seriously. I can tell you now, I listen, Mr. Chair, I listen via the app every single day. Every day. When I'm in my home office, I listen to via the app, right? So let's get then to the business of the main speaker. And before I even get to that, actually, wait, talking about Mahala, did you put your business card in when you entered? You guys did that, right? Because, well, maybe if you haven't, you got a chance to do it later on. But there's a plan that two people who've inserted their business card, and if you don't have a business card, just make a spaza one. Just write down whatever it is. Two of them will if your name gets pulled out, you'll get 25,000 rands. No, not bucks. Airtime for free on SAfm. Oh, that's worth a fortune, really. 25,000 rands per person. So if you haven't yet done it, I'll get the instructions later. But before we pull the draw, make sure that you do so. I would not miss that. And then in terms of the conversation, please use your social media platforms to add your thoughts. Like, I agree, I don't agree. Quotes the speakers, right? Share your own opinions about it. Like, what do you think? Where should it go? We'd love to have that conversation using that hashtag, which is SAfm Annual Lecture 2025. Right, let's get to the main speaker. So I'm going to use the word very intentionally, Geraldine. I first came across the name of Geraldine Fraser when I was a lightie, and there was this young activist, raising human rights issues that were so fundamental to us. And she certainly perked my interest, right? And then I saw her graduate from where she was, and suddenly she was this minister. But the distinct, can I say what, Cape Town Lansdowne accent, I think it is, it sort of never left me because she just sounded so different, right? And because I have lots of family who come from the Cape, it just sort of resonated with me. So that has never left me. But then I saw this person graduate from this activist to this minister, and I followed that career. And then it became, Minister Geraldine Fraser, and then Minister Geraldine Fraser Moleketi, right? So there was a whole transition that took place there. And I understood that the minister part, you were 35 years old when you were a cabinet minister. Now, my understanding is, at that stage, that was a record in democratic South Africa. What happened before 1994, I don't even care. What happened 94 onwards, that was a record, right? Which was only broken subsequently and now lowered to 34 fairly recently. I will leave it to you to Google who exactly holds that record, okay? At the age of 34. But 35 is what Geraldine Fraser Moleketi had set up all those years ago, okay? So, having seen the Geraldine, to the Dr. Geraldine Fraser Moleketi, when our program manager, acting program manager Andile said, hey, that's the speaker, I'm like, shot, that's great. Because the truth is, even people like myself, let's be very blunt about it. Yes, we talk, we speak from public platforms, but not every speaker is exciting, not every speaker is interesting, some are boring, some are not, some are like, oh, come on. But the truth is, I would pay to listen to you. And I'm just making that point as an endorsement of who you are. Because having then followed the career and then moving on to, you being the chancellor at the Nelson Mandela University and on the board of Tiger Brands, chair of Tiger Brands, right? And I believe a very profitable Tiger Brands of the last few days. So we speak at a very, very important time as well, right? And there's been a rebrand of the logo of Tiger Brands. There's like some significant things happening within Tiger Brands, right? But I also know that it's an interesting one. There are only two people in my entire on-air career where I've spoken to a mother and a daughter. One of them is Naledi Pandor, and then her daughter Aisha. And the other is yourself and your daughter, and at separate occasions. And not because she was your daughter, because of what she had achieved in her space. And I remember even at that stage, when she was in the mobile industry, talking about how she was inspired by yourself to do the right things all of the time. So you've clearly left a huge impression. And I would say this much, therefore, because if those who know me will know that I dream of a champion nation. And in dreaming of a champion nation where everything checks out, right, I understand it needs the champion people. The champion people to build the champion nation. And I say that because I'm very comfortable telling this to your face, Dr. Geraldine Fraser Moleketi. You're a champion, and you're one of the champion people that have actively tried to build a champion nation. And I'd like everyone to join me in applause of just acknowledging that. But I'm also, no, wait, we haven't even started yet. You can stick around. South Africans are proactive, I get that. But outside the public acknowledgement, I want to also say, I'm a fan. when people come up to me and they say, we like your work, I love your work, they come up to me. I come up to people like yourself and they say, I like your work, so I'm a fan, right? And the last thing I'll say before I call you up is just because we had a delayed start, our esteemed guest said, Ashraf, what do you want me to do? You want me to cut some of my time and leave out something, because of the time deadlines? And maybe I didn't use those exact words, but I essentially said, don't you dare. You have a message to deliver, and we want to hear that message. So don't you dare censor yourself. We want to pick out some gold nuggets from yourself, right? Now, if you can, before you come up, that's what I've said. There's a whole lot of other formalities which I've left out, as you know, and I'm more this formal, informal person. Let's get to the formal side of it. I want to get your attention to this video, which will trace the history then of Dr. Geraldine Fraser Moleketi.
Dr. Geraldine Jocelyn Fraser Moleketi was born in Lansdowne, Cape Town, where she received her primary education in Wynberg and matriculated at Livingstone High School in Claremont. Early achievements hailing from the ranks of the liberation movement include working as National Deputy Elections Coordinator of the African National Congress towards the first democratic elections in 1994. She was elected to South Africa's first democratic parliament in April 1994 and served 3 consecutive parliaments until her resignation in September 2008. Dr. Geraldine served in the Cabinet of South Africa as Minister for Welfare and Population Development and subsequently as Minister of Public Service and Administration in 2 subsequent administrations. She previously served as Special Envoy on Gender of the African Development Bank, former Director of Global Democratic Governance Practice of the United Nations Development Programme. Dr. Geraldine is married to Mr. Jabu Moleketi, former Deputy Minister of Finance of South Africa, and has 3 children and 2 grandchildren. She holds a master's degree in public administration, cum laude, from the University of Pretoria, a fellow of the Institute of Politics, Kennedy School of Government, and Harvard University, and has completed a leading organizational change course at Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania. She is currently the Chancellor of the Nelson Mandela University, Chairman of the Thabo Mbeki Board of Trustees, Chair of the Committee of Experts on Public Administration, or the CEPA, a subsidiary body of the United Nations Economic and Social Council. She's a board member of Exaro, non-executive board member of Standard Bank Group, and chairman of the Tiger Brands Board and Group. In addition, a D.Phil honoris causa by the Nelson Mandela University and later a Philosophia honoris causa by the Northwest University. SAfm welcomes Dr. Geraldine Fraser Moleketi to deliver our 3rd annual public lecture for 2025.
Make some noise, make some big noise. Yeah. You can make further noise just now. I want to just say that, just look at it, right? 2 years ago, Chief Justice Mogoeng, that's where you come from. Last year, Dr. Naledi Pandor. This year, Dr. Geraldine Fraser Moleketi. I mean, what a privilege, okay? And before you start and before you get seated, I want to just leave you this. I mean, you know, we're going to talk on the theme of inequality and a whole lot more. This, for me, is a telling statement you've made, which I think sets the scene here. Whichever way we look at it, we need to acknowledge the objective reality that unacceptably large numbers of our citizens are unemployed, living in poverty, and unable to access the full spectrum of rights at the desired level of quality guaranteed. That's not my words. That's the words of the person you're going to be listening to for the next, well, you can work out how many minutes, right? Thank you so much. I leave it up to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, SAfm and SABC, for the honor of engaging with you all on this theme, confronting inequality, corruption and unemployment, rebuilding South Africa's social contract for inclusive and sustainable growth. A truly relevant and urgent discussion considering the current political landscape in South Africa and indeed globally. So look around us. The truth is, the mood in South Africa today is heavy with dejection, anger, and deep-seated mistrust. It's a mood a world away from the unbridled joy and unity that defined April 27, 1994. On that day, one could argue that we even considered ourselves miracle workers. We stood in lines that snaked for kilometers, not with frustration, but with hope. We chose dialogue over destruction and negotiation over vengeance. You have in the front row Tenjiwe Mtinso. Tenjiwe and I, and she's been there even longer, has been in the movement for longer than we could even imagine. Our kids grew up understanding that this movement is what they belong to and they are part of because of what it represented and what it should represent. And we did it at a time when the cost was high. We did it at a time when it wasn't about career politics, but it was about the need to rebuild South Africa into what's captured in our Constitution, and with a deep understanding that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. So we chose dialogue over destruction, as I say, and negotiations over vengeance, and we debated that decision intensely. It wasn't something that we landed on easily. We looked into the abyss of our bitter past and chose instead to forge a future together. So I ask you tonight, what happened? How did we, the architects of a modern miracle, lose our way? And I raise that question in the spirit of being a South African, where we raise the question in order to deal with what it should, how we should respond to it. So we're not raising the question to beat up anyone. We're raising it because we need to do something about it. So the poet Ben Okri posed a question that haunts me in this context, and I quote, "Will you be at the harvest among the gatherers of new fruits? Then you must begin today to remake your mental and spiritual world. You can't remake the world without remaking yourself," close quotes. My argument tonight is that our social contract is fractured, and to rebuild it, we must return to that essential inner work, to take part in building a new and freer future, the harvest. We must renew our own perceptions and spirit. By reshaping ourselves, children of Africa one and all, we become capable of joining others who fought for freedom and pursued bold dreams. In the mid-90s, 1990s, or rather the mid-1990s, generally were a generative and optimistic period globally. Despite a large number of severe conflicts at the beginning of the decade, and I will lift some, among them the 1994 Rwandan genocide, wars in the former Yugoslavia from 91 to 95, and the 1990 to 91 First Gulf War, the period between the thawing of the Cold War and the chaos that was unleashed because of what was described as the War of Terror from 2001, is perceived as a time of increasing peace and optimism. Globally, the conflict in Northern Ireland ended. Peace all too fleetingly was reached between Israel and Palestine. The genocide and subsequent civil war in Rwanda, I referred to this in 94, ended. The Sri Lankan civil war ended in 95, and military rule in South America and Africa gave way to democratic governments. In South Africa, the successful conclusion of negotiations led to our first democratic elections in 94, and I made reference to that earlier, and the inauguration of President Nelson Mandela, our first democratically elected president. But we must remember that the negotiations that preceded that did not occur in a vacuum. There was underground organization, mass mobilization, armed struggle, as well as international solidarity and sanctions, which created the conditions for negotiations to end white minority rule, to end apartheid and usher in our democracy. Now, just in case I might get misconstrued, I'm not proposing armed struggle for the period ahead. Let me just take that off the table very clearly. The point is, we need commitment, we need visionary leadership, we need an active citizenry and conscious collective action in situations such as the one in which we currently find ourselves. And we do so acknowledging that the period I referred to earlier was a watershed moment for us in South Africa and even globally. So a review of the first decade of democracy succinctly summarized the challenges and approach adopted by the government of which I was privileged to be a part. The attainment of democracy in 94 presented the government with twin challenges: significant institutional transformation and at the same time introducing new policies in line with the democratic constitution. Secondly, the government had to deal with the legacy of apartheid, and that legacy within South Africa, while at the same time facing new challenges of integrating the country into a rapidly changing global environment. Since 94, the state had deliberately set out systematically and deliberately to dismantle apartheid social relations and create a democratic society based on the principles of equity, non-racialism, and non-sexism. So let us be clear this evening that as I speak of the despondency, The last 30 years was not a total failure, and I'm not going to dissect it. Tonight, I don't have the time. But what I want to mention, and this goes to those in the room and outside, those listening tonight, is we built, we negotiated, we adopted a constitution we are proud of. We extended water, electricity, and we hoped dignity to millions. We began the painful work of economic transformation. This was not nothing. And as early as in May 1998, the then Deputy President, Thabo Mbeki, drew attention to address the issues of transformation in an address to the National Assembly. He underscored the link between sustainable development and less tangible aspects of nation building. In his speech, he argued, and I quote, "The issue of reconciliation and nation building is defined and derives from material conditions in our society, which have divided our country into two nations, one black and the other white," close quotes. He posited South Africa as a country of two nations. One of these nations was white, relatively prosperous, ready to access a developed economy and resources, and empowered to exercise its right to equal opportunity, regardless of its geographic dispersion and gender. And I'm sure, Tenji, you'd remember the debates around this thesis at that point in time. The other larger nation was black, poor, dealt with an underdeveloped economy and related infrastructure, and struggled to exercise its theoretical right to equal opportunity. The existence of these two nations within a single country was underwritten by the racial, gender, and spatial disparities of our colonial and apartheid pasts. This was not just a racial observation. It was a structural diagnosis. And today, that chasm between the two nations remains the core of our crisis. Here, inequality is the chasm between the two nations. Corruption is the looting of the second nation's resources. Unemployment is the prison of the second nation. And failed service delivery, that is the daily grinding reality for the second nation. A betrayal of the promise enshrined in our Constitution, especially the values of Chapter 10. So we focused on political liberation. We worked on economic transformation, hoping economic growth would foster or contribute towards a single nation. We may have underestimated the trauma of our past and networks of resistance from our past that were still prevalent, not visible. And we may have overestimated the power of a rising tide to lift all boats. The tide rose, but too many of our people were left stranded on the shore. So a review 20 years after the advent of democracy noted a number of areas of progress and challenges remaining, but cautioned, and I quote, that much more still needs to be done to address poverty, unemployment, and inequality, close quotes. So while it is challenging to provide a comprehensive overview of the early decades of democracy in a single speech, there's a couple of key areas of progress and emerging challenges in the first decades or 2 decades of democracy. And I would assume that in the discussion that will follow, some of these will come up. This is the transformation of the governance landscape and building institutions critical to constitutional democracy, with the National Assembly, National Council of Provinces, provincial legislatures and municipal councils replacing the balkanized apartheid and Bantustan regime systems, establishing an independent judiciary and apex constitutional court and Chapter 9 constitutional institutions, average growth rate of 3.2% a year from 1994 to 2012, and this is despite the 2008 global recession, with marked improvement over the pre-1994 growth rates. And it was modest compared to other emerging economies. Employment grew by approximately 5.6 million between 1994 and 2013. And poverty reduction measures include expanded the reach of the social security safety net from the narrow and racialized pre-1994 focus. Access to basic level of essential municipal services, especially for communities excluded by apartheid, improved. Sanitation increased from 50% of households in 94-95 to 83% of households in 2011 to 2012. And I can go on. But economic growth, or the lack thereof, also brings forward the following questions. What are the ownership patterns of the economy? And how do we transform the economy? And we cannot deny, in spite of the naysayers, the impact of Black economic empowerment in building, in a small way, a more economically just society post-1994. And my emphasis is on small or limited. Indeed, apartheid suppressed the entrepreneurial spirit amongst Black people and legally barred Black people from acquiring significant assets, making economic justice a salient objective in the democratic era. And economic transformation is not simply a means to increase our country's Gini coefficient, but a way to heal the systemic divisions of our past. And this is echoed in recent data on Black representation, and here I use Black in the broadest sense, in South Africa. And I'm not going to read the data points I have. We'll make it available, Ashraf, and we'll see how we can use that. So economic empowerment did not happen by accident. Rather, equity laws and incentives have resulted in some level due to compliance requirements. It is important to note that Black economic empowerment wasn't developed to address all socio-economic ills in South Africa. And if there is such a view, that is a completely incorrect view. Because how do you look at something that's but a percentage point, and you leave where wealth actually lies, and you feel that the responsibility is carried by this one particular policy? So maybe the question is, when we listen to those who argue to reform BBEE policies for greater access, we must ask, is it a review of the current BBEE model? Is that required to broaden access? Or isn't there something else required? And I throw this question out to you, the audience, tonight, because we must also ensure that there are reforms in place that support structural changes to the economy and that are bolstered by other policies that will address all human rights enshrined in the Constitution, so both human and socio-economic rights. And that we should look at the initiatives, at strategies, policies, and initiatives that aim to reduce poverty, that support informal and micro enterprises. And I'm going down to the minute, and I'm not saying these are the responses, but also to boost job creation, especially amongst the youth, and I'll come back again, to improve basic services, and to reduce the cost of living. And I do want to say, and let me make this point tonight, and let's say I use the Chancellor hat at this point, because that allows me the flexibility to maneuver, that not having Black economic empowerment and related policies would be a deep betrayal. I'd wish to argue, and I'd want you to go and read a piece Joel Netchetenge wrote recently. But it would be a betrayal, as he stated as well, of our constitutional values and our democratic processes. Because who is crying wolf and why? So I'm not going to dwell on our performance in reducing poverty and inequality. And we have two very vibrant panelists, and I think many of you know Lebogang, so rest assured she's going to bring that on, you know. But I do want to say that measuring poverty levels has been complicated by the absence of consistent indices going back to 1994. But the general picture that emerges is that progress in reducing poverty was made through the comprehensive social security net and access to basic services. However, these gains were reversed by high levels of income poverty. The bottom line is that income poverty remains high, and our society, measured by Gini coefficient, is still one of the most unequal in the world. So let me look, and let me just jump and say that in addition to what I've raised, advances in equity, sustainability, and diversity are being reversed, and the political discourse is increasingly characterized by intolerance and misinformation. And we see that not only in South Africa, but elsewhere. We hear of genocide of Afrikaners. Quite bizarre. But I must say, there are Afrikaners that have come out and said, not in our name. So it's not a uniform position and view. But this is part of the misinformation. There's a moment where you can put anything on steroids. Just put it out there enough. And this is on top of several global crises that I won't go into. So returning to South Africa, the mood in the country, as I stated before, is very different. Despite progress in moving away from the negative legacy of the past, sketched in broad brushstrokes earlier, our society is still characterized by the threefold challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. And this has been variously diagnosed as a failure of leadership, a crisis of governance, the result of corruption and maladministration, poor service delivery, high level of unemployment, and low levels of economic growth. So there's no gainsaying that as a society, we are facing a serious conjunction of factors, and we need to look at how we deal with it. And let me move on. And I want to say that moving from early years of a sense of optimism and belief in ourselves and our innate abilities to overcome major obstacles through dialogue, negotiation, and common purpose. I said earlier we lost it somewhere. And we hear this daily. We see it either on television or we hear it on the radio. Now, I'm not saying SAfm mustn't do that, please. So, unacceptably high levels of crime, the burden of which falls most heavily on the poorest and most vulnerable. And the perceived failures of law enforcement agencies have further alienated many. The ongoing revelations in the Commission of Inquiry into Criminality, political interference and corruption in the criminal justice system points to a significant erosion of the country's capacity to effectively combat crime and corruption. It also points to a reality of deliberate attempts to break down institutions of the state. Deliberate attempts. And corruption has undoubtedly played a major part in siphoning away much needed resources that could have contributed to South Africa's development. And it is also, and in eroding the legitimacy of the state so carefully nurtured since 1994. So I do want to say not all is lost. And the commissions, the panels, the ad hoc committee of Parliament, and mind you, Parliament is the voice of the people, may in fact be the catalyst we need as a country to clean out the agents' tables. The commissions and panels expose the harrowing betrayal of South Africa's constitutional values. But the findings and recommendations in these commissions allow South Africans, you and I, to engage with the facts as analyzed and on which the findings are based in the reports. The lifespan of a commission, and I want to state this, and I'm repeating something you know, but I think it's important. The lifespan of a commission ceases once a report is handed over to the president or the principal. So no chair of a commission should come back and defend findings. When it's handed over, that ceases. As a matter of fact, there's a Latin word for it. I'll come to that. Because commissions Panels are truth-finding mechanisms, and as a result, cannot change their findings. In that capacity or instance, the chairperson should become functus officio. The lawyers in the room will understand that well, and even us layperson have learned this. And this should give us, the citizens, an objective and proven basis to accept or reject recommendations. Whether this engagement occurs via issue-based town hall meetings, or a meeting like this one this evening, a lecture, or multi-stakeholder forums, or a dialogue, it is crucial we play an active role in holding power to account and reshaping the social compact of the future. And hence it is important that when a commission sits, it should hear all the evidence. And I suppose as we listen to this commission, we actually wonder whether all evidence was heard previously, but that's not my discussion tonight. The breakdown of social values, the feeling of alienation felt by many, and the high levels of crime, violence, and xenophobia point to deeper societal issues that go beyond simple analysis. Indeed, persistent and overlapping societal issues point to a crisis of leadership in our country. And despite manifest gains in advancing gender rights, South Africa still remains a deeply patriarchal society, a prominent feature of which is the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide. And we've witnessed the recent women's shutdown on the 21st November, and we've heard the subsequent declaration of gender-based violence and femicide as a national disaster. It would also be remiss not to mention how South African women, and especially black women, and here I talk about black, brown women, are particularly vulnerable to poverty, violence, and other social ills. And dismantling the legacies of colonial and racial segregations requires us to tackle the harmful patriarchal norms and their many violent consequences. And perhaps we underestimated the extent of the trauma from centuries of colonialism and apartheid. And Togo, I think you would agree, sitting where you sit. I don't even want to look at the bishop, around this. And when I talk about underestimating it and the trauma, it's for all South Africans. It's for everyone. It didn't affect one racial group. Everyone was impacted on. And we should look at that. But let me move on before Ashraf starts tapping his foot. So what are the signs of hope and pillars of renewal? So Ashraf spoke about a small glimmer. We had a successful G20. We felt good about it, and so on. Some people felt a little bit inconvenienced because they had to stay home, but they did things they otherwise would not have done. But we galvanized, and others had as well. So there's this. Through this, we hope that we will see opportunities of inclusive economic growth, strengthening global partnerships, and reforming international institutions, because we want to ensure that multilateralism reclaims the center. The second cause for optimism is the need for a debate around a dialogue, which represents a significant opportunity to rebuild the social contract between the state and its citizens to restore public trust and rebuild the legitimacy of public institutions around a shared set of values and a common vision for all. It's our chance to return to the table, not this time to discuss the end of a war. It's an opportunity to win peace. And this is what we should see it to be. Because if we look at how fractured South African society is, we need this. Rebuilding the social contract needs active and responsible citizenship, the champions that Ashraf talks about. And there are several elements to establishing or re-establishing an effective social compact. And I'm going to mention 3, I've got a list. Ordinary people and communities rediscovering and exercising their agency. My mother was from a small place called Klipfontein. You know, there's great people that come from small towns. I thought she was one such. The people from Klipfontein must see themselves as rediscovering themselves and exercising their agency. And it's also about building and rebuilding a capable and developmental state and having ethical, competent, and visionary leadership in the public and private sectors. And we've heard too much about leaders seemingly having feet of clay. And I could say more. So how do we rebuild? We need a new social contract. We need a builder's manifesto. And I propose 4 core pillars. The first one being an integrity pillar. And this is rebuilding and reprofessionalizing the state. And don't listen to anyone who say to you, the issue of building a professional public service is new. We put it on the table in 94. Go and read section 195 of the Constitution. It's there. And if people are waking up now, they should actually say, we were remiss. So, professionalizing the state and confronting corruption. And we must rebuild the engine of the state with competence and ethics. And this means returning to section 195 of our Constitution. And I can go into the issue of appointments, whether it's directors general, municipal managers and SOE heads and so on. But that's for the discussion. So corruption is a key inhibitor of attaining our socioeconomic and development objectives, but it does not define us as a nation. And I think we must never forget that. As such, we as citizens must not shy away from confronting corruption. We must focus on it actively and critically, engage with it. It's very important because civic activism involves engaging, debating, accepting, and rejecting with full and rational reason socio-economic issues so that we may help to build a more prosperous nation. The Bishop came out with a report, was it 2 years ago, Bishop? The report from the SACC, I think it's about them, and these issues were raised. Communities spoke. And I don't want to say dololo, because we're going to change that after today. The second issue is the economic pact pillar, and there's a need for a new deal for inclusive growth. Our new deal. Our new deal. And I'm not going to go into the details because that must be spelled out in discussion. But what we must ensure that we have an economy that builds bridges between the two nations described. And this requires a concrete pact between government, business, labor, and society, moving beyond a sense of mistrust. And we need to look at what we focus on. Our current stagnation is a political economy problem. And then thirdly, a talent pillar, a national mission to skill our youth. The energy and talent of our young people are our greatest untapped resource. We need more than promises. We need a specific time-bound accord to place more than 1 million young people into paid internships, learnerships, and apprenticeships. And we need to do a lot more. And then the soul pillar, and that's about forging a shared identity. And we must consciously build a decolonized South African identity. This means integrating an African-centered perspective into our national curriculum, from primary schools to universities, to technicons and everywhere else. It means a massive government and civil society-led campaign to teach every citizen their constitutional rights and responsibility. So what's the call to action? The builder's cry. The manifesto is not for government. We need to build that manifesto as citizens. The work of the builder belongs to all of us, and we will bring government in. We also need to ensure that we reignite a sense of hope in South Africa to achieve those bold ideals of 94. So I'll call on everyone to rebuild that social contract. So to every public servant in this room or on the airwaves, this is the time to recommit your oath. Uphold Section 195 in every decision, every day. And it's not about compliance or about malicious compliance. Because as a public servant, yours is to serve wherever you find yourself, or in government, or at whatever level of government. To business, they must move, you must move beyond corporate social responsibility into core business investment. Partner, not in charity, but in the transformative work of building inclusive value chains. To organize labor, work with us as partners in designing flexible, fair labor agreements that protect workers while enabling us to absorb the unemployed. And to every citizen, your agency is not just your vote. It's your voice in every community meeting, your refusal to pay a bribe, your mentorship of a young person. We must all be builders now. The work is ours. We've done this before, faced with the brutal, seemingly immutable logic of apartheid. We thought, miracle workers, but we knew there was hard work. It wasn't a miracle only. The task before us now is different, but no less vital. Today, we must build on the foundation that was there at the beginning of the democracy. We were freedom fighters then. We must be nation builders now. This is the hard, unglamorous work of building. It is the work of laying every brick of economic justice. It is the work of plumbing our economy with pipes of inclusion. It is the work of wiring our nation with the currency of opportunity, or the current of opportunity. So let us enter this engagement, this dialogue, not as weary skeptics, but as the determined heirs of our past and our dream. Let us secure the future by ensuring it is built on the solid ground of shared prosperity and not on the shifting sands of exclusion and despair. Ben Okri asked us, and I quote, "Will you be at the harvest?" Close quotes. I say to you tonight, the harvest will not appear by magic. We must plant the seeds. We must till the soil, and we must water it with our collective will. And somewhere in our constitution lies the blueprint. Our foundation is our history of triumph, the resilience of the South African people. The materials are our talents and our unwavering commitment. The call is clear. The time is now. Let us rise and build. Thank you.
Stay there. Don't run away. Stay in the front door. I'm sure they want to take pictures of you. Let's get some. You got my volume up, right? Let's get some bigger noise here. Come on. And please take some pictures as well, if you haven't yet done so. Maybe include me. I mean, like, it will be a privilege. Let me shake your hands. There we are. But I mean, you've asked a very important, you've said many things. But the one question you asked, which I'll put to all of you now, is like, how many of you are nation builders? Can you raise your hands? All right. How many of you are, this is my words, how many of you are champion nation builders? That means you champion a great cause, and your bottom line is not just to build a nation, but to build a champion nation. Because if that happens, then everything, as per your entire dialogue, just check, or monologue, checks out completely. Can we get to that, right? It's a big challenge for all of us. Thank you so much, right? Now your work is not done. I mean, that's just one part of it. We're going to have another chat up here. So if I can lead you to the conversation room, if I can call it that, right? And we'll call up, you can sit over here. There we are. If you can sit over there, right? And we're going to call upon two others to join you, which I'm so looking forward to, right? Just to, by the way, Andile, while we at it, just guide me with this, the issue about the business cards that we wanted people to put into like a gold dish or whatever. Have they done that? Do we need to do that? What's the position? Later on. Oh, they've done it. Okay, because I didn't want anyone to miss the 25,000 Rand Mahala airtime. It's very, very important indeed. All right, let me grab my seat as well, right? And so this is the plan. We've got about 30 minutes of conversation, but it's not just you and I, right? It's we're going to get two others to help, and I think you alluded to that as well. They represent They represent the brains trust, I think, of South Africa, which is just wonderful, right? So the first of the two, put your hands together for Dr. Lebogang Lopolo Peko. If you can come up, please. Who, as you know, is
excellent.
Well, she's a political economist, a trade collector. We've had many conversations on air, and you know when you I mean, I must say, when your surname says Peko, you just know. Absolutely. I mean, you just know it, right? So there we are. Wonderful that you've joined us, and I look forward to that conversation. And the second of, well, what will make up three panelists now, Ayabonga Kawe, who's the Chief Commissioner at the International Trade Administration Commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we see each other twice in 2 days, so clearly you've taken off like the whole week. It seems like it anyway, right? So look, we're going to be guided by time. We've got 30 minutes. It's not a long time. So we need to push each one of us to just get some thoughts on where we are, right? So obviously I'm going to leave you out for the moment, right? That makes sense. Let's start with you, Ayabonga, just to, perhaps I'll leave it with an open canvas for you. I mean, you've heard what was said, right? You go for it. What's your comment?
Thank you very much, Geraldine, for the inputs. And I mean, I found it a fascinating contribution. And thank you so much, Ashraf. Good to see you again. I bumped into you last night as well at the airport, and we're together in Durban. Maybe just briefly, I think a few things I'd like to say. I think the first is, tonight, in an interesting way, is the kind of intergenerational dialogue we should be having in the society. I often shudder to think how infrequent discussions are between us as a generation and the generation of our parents and grandparents. Not only about the history from which we have come, but more importantly, what do we build from the debris of colonialism and apartheid? You know, Geraldine started her discussion by saying she's a miracle worker. I liked the choice because we often fall into South African exceptionalism about us being a miracle. And I thought today, maybe let me share a few things, because in trying to think through what we might want to talk about today, I think you've touched on the first, that we came out in South Africa for a war situation. And Utatomkhulu Govan Mbeki said in his book, Sunset at Midday, that you had a war that did not have any winners and everybody ended up in a draw. But from that war, you also had an outcome that was an effective starting point to something much better. And of course, I would imagine he was drawing from Marx, who also said, reflecting on the French Commune, that the working class didn't expect miracles from the Commune. They had to pass through a series of historic processes that would transform circumstances and people. Elsewhere, he says, you may have to undergo 15, 20, 50 years of civil wars and popular struggles to change yourselves and to prepare yourselves for political mastery. And I think, Ashraf, it's important because much of what we have to contend with, certainly us of the younger cohort, is not just only how we change property and social relations in the society, but how do we change ourselves, which is sometimes a bit more of a more difficult thing. Umama spoke about kind of an economic pact. And I think, Mama, the last time we spoke, it was in one of your committees at Exaro, and we were discussing the amendments to the Companies Act. And one of the issues we have in South Africa, we're the most unequal society in the world, and there are two primary drivers of our inequality. It's inequality in wages, and it's also asset inequality. And the reality that we have is that we have not only a problem of our circumstances and how property and ownership is accorded in the society, but we also have a value system problem. We have a value system in the country that is acquisitive, focused on individualist consumerism, but we also have that value system embedded in how economic decisions are made both in the public and in the private sector. Let me give you an example, just to take it away from the public service, because we've seen enough Madlanga, Brown Mokhotsi, Kat Matlala, and so on. But one of the big issues that we have in South Africa is this prevalent practice of what are called share buybacks. A few weeks ago, Professor Stiglitz was here in South Africa, And in the discussions we had with him, one of the things he was saying was, share buybacks are dividends without the tax treatment. So what happens? You have an upward distribution of income in the society. So there's this value that is created by managers and the workers in a firm. But when the value or the surplus value has to be distributed, you've got all manner of machinations in the form of excessive dividend payments, share buybacks, aggressive payments down to bondholders, that all effectively reinforce this unequal distribution of economic resources in the society. And I would imagine, Mama Geraldine, that we probably have to reconnect with some of the ideas that illuminated the fires of your youth. One of those ideas, which I don't hear a lot about in South Africa, even Ambassador Mtinzo, I don't hear a lot about, is an idea that was in one of the governing party's documents in the early 90s, Ready to Govern, which was calling for economic planning to take into account the contribution that unpaid labor makes to the creation of wealth. There was a commitment to create an additional set of national accounts to account for unpaid labor. Now, some of us came from the student movement, and it's fascinating to realize how many of the things we were talking about the gendered, unpaid, and uncompensated labor within the home and elsewhere, is actually not anything you'll find in the quarterly GDP print that all of us look at as policymakers. And so, in a way, we have to really reconnect with all, as I said, those ideas that illuminated your youth. And one of those ideas, just as a parting shot, Ashraf, because I hope we'll have a bit more discussion, is this idea that we are a nation in becoming. I think it's easy when the Springboks beat the Irish on the weekend and all of us are wearing green jerseys and feeling very cozy and clubby, and we think, it's all nice and good. Yet, in the same vein, we are seeing a resurgence of ethno-nationalism. We're seeing a resurgence in a country where the 8 metros account for 60% of all of our GDP, a resurgence of regionalism. You are seeing secessionist movements emerging in places like the Western Cape. You are seeing, Ashraf, a contestation of this idea of South Africa as a unitary state. Only in 1994, since 1910, was South Africa a country that was one unitary state that included and gave citizenship to all of its people. And yet, 30 years from that period, we are reneging into all of these parasitic value systems that are trying to re-balkanize us. To say, when you're in the Western Cape, you come from the Eastern Cape, you are an economic refugee in the Western Cape. And I think these are things we have to reflect on. So maybe just as a parting shot, and I can say a lot more, but I want to, you see, because Geraldine, when you went to Ben Okri, because there's a quote of Ben Okri that people don't like to read. It's from his book called Infinite Riches, and it reads as follows: each moment offered us clarity and liberation, but we settled for the comforting shapes of legends, no matter how monstrous or useless. Let me read that again. Each moment offered us clarity and liberation, but we settled for the comforting shapes of legends, no matter how monstrous or useless. And I think the comforting shape of bad ideas and parasitic value systems. One of those bad ideas is the point you raise about the expectation that all boats would rise as the tide rises, that trickle-down economics, that the functioning in an unfettered way of the market would realize value for all. And I think those bad ideas, and of course an accompanying parasitic value system in the society that gives rise to corruption, that gives rise to the lumpen patriarchy we see in the form of gender-based violence, that gives rise, in the case of African men, if you look at the mortality data from Stats SA, between the ages of 18 and 29, more than 50% of young African men who do die from unnatural causes. If you compare that to African women of the same age cohort, less than a fifth of them, less than 20% die from the same. And what are we dying from? We're dying from being stabbed. We're dying from car accidents. We're dying from all of these manifestations of the deep psychosocial harm of living in a society in transition. And I'm grateful that you started off by saying your generation were miracle workers. But I think the transition is a very long time. We are still very much in the transition. We take the baton from you, but we must also accept that we expect no miracles. We have to pass through a series of historic processes. And part of that historic process includes reasserting triple BEE. It includes reasserting a mixed economy that includes public ownership of the productive forces in the society. We can't privatize everything. And maybe lastly, I must say, Chair, as a former worker of the SABC myself, that a big part of those historic processes is the reassertion and a reaffirmation of the SABC as a public rather than a state broadcaster. You are not alone in your debate. The BBC is going through the same issues. But I think this democratic society we're trying to build would be much poorer for us not undertaking the tasks of reconstruction, including, of course, resolving some of the issues that we have at the SABC. Thanks, Ashraf.
Thank you. I could say that's the 4th SAfm annual lecture, but anyway, fascinating. Some really important points have come through from there. Right, let me leave it to you then, Dr. Lebogang.
So thanks to Geraldine, thanks to Aya as well, and thanks to all of us here. I hear feedback. Am I feeding you back? Am I? Okay.
Just check if it's a sound.
Testing.
All right, it should be okay, yeah, okay.
Thank you. So I'd like to sort of begin with a contestation. And my contestation is the notion of South Africa and its bloodless revolution, its bloodless transition, and the idea that somehow this transitional period into what we are now calling the 1994 dispensation didn't come at a cost beyond negotiations and dialogue. And I say this also in the context of something I read a few days ago, which shook me, which many of us will probably be aware of. There were 150,000 children detained during the state of emergency in the 1980s. And when I say child, I mean child. So under 18. Some people who are as young as 8 years old. So we are standing on the shoulders of child soldiers in South Africa. And it seems that we're very reluctant to talk about it openly and to talk about the ongoing pathologies. We have spoken about trauma, but the ongoing pathologies of what this means. 150,000 people who possibly did not talk about the things that they had seen, the things that they had done, the things that were done to them while they were detained, some of them in solitary confinement, 8 years old. There's a namelessness to this. There's a shaming to this. There's a silencing to this. So it should be of no surprise to us that we now live in a society where violence is leaking through our pores, where we don't understand why men are angry, why we don't understand why women are brutalized, and why we don't understand that we are living in a situation that is really a civil war that has been oncoming for 350 years. I really don't see any deep divide between the 350 years of armed struggle, armed combat, and the era and the dispensation that we are in now. What we see is that the tools have shifted slightly. The tools have changed, but the languaging also has to catch up. The other piece of this is that when we talk about this underclass, black people, the two nations, the racialized, spatialized gender disparities that Geraldine spoke about very competently and very eloquently, I beg to differ about the notion of two nations, because I think that this acts as an abrogation and an abdication of the understanding that this racialized hierarchy has become normalized. There are no two nations, it is one nation. And it is one nation of an African majority that continuously is treated as the chattel labor to the project of South Africa and now international capital. Remember that the origins of this country stand at the feet of a slaved and enslaved state. Enslaved labor. And enslaved labor does not only reside in places like the United States, the state of Virginia, and so on. South Africa was one of the first, the origins of an enslaved capital model. And that enslavement may not only have been through chattel, on plantations, but this is a plantation economy. Make no mistake about it. It is split down to, it was, the two binaries were the mineral complex, and we're still living in not in the afterlife of it. We are living in the cauldron of it. And the other, of course, the agricultural economy. And African people's labor at every vantage point of these economies has been purely extracted, completely extracted. I find it difficult to go to the Western Cape and go to wine farms and feel neutral about it. I mean, I'm not begrudging anybody South Africa's legendary wine, no. But I'm just saying, Jay, think about the processes of what it means to produce that wine. Think about the processes of the people who live there intergenerationally without any security of tenure. Think about the people who are evicted once their parents or the last living descendant passes away. And there's nobody who remembers, how do these people get here? So when Uncle Pete's nephew also dies, who then had hired the whole family or had the whole family living there, working there, sleeping there, and some school. And when Pete dies, then the memory of how this whole family and community came to be there dies with them. So how then do we deal with the memorialization of trauma, of brutality, and how it has then been used to then continuously extract from us? Another piece that I'd like to go into before I get into my actual notes, because for now we are riffing, but another piece I would...
Thanks for just nudging me. Can we just extend by another hour, please?
Is that in thinking around then the fact that many of us are standing on the traumatized land of vanquished memories, we then have to think about then this binary between armed struggle and social struggle. There was a time when I think that we became demoralized, demobilized. In the 1990s, post-1994, when I first came, my family and I first trickled back to live in this, become miracle workers as well. You couldn't go a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks without the city standing still because somebody wanted to claim back our personhood, whether it was through trade unions, primarily, social movements in communities, whether it was through the women's movements, but there was always something that was happening to remind us that the Constitution, with respect to Geraldine, was not enough. It needs to be given life. It needs to be given legs, eyes, ears, breath. Because the Constitution, pampiri, doesn't feed you, doesn't shelter you. It just says this is a nice constitution. And I've always seen social protests, so-called service delivery protests. I see those as reclamations of African people's personhood. A reminder that we are deserving of more, and a reminder of how far adrift we are of the promises of 1994. How far adrift we are of what institutions and machinery, and I'm getting to my notes now, machinery like the Macroeconomic Research Center, MERC, which was an ANC instrument, which I know Dr. Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi will know all about. It was bold. It was the ANC's internal think tank. It was talking about redistribution and state-led economic alternatives. Trickle down, trickle out, trickle across. It was talking about redistribution in ways that were tangible. And I think its closure symbolized the abandonment of transformative economics. What my great mentor, Ruth Gilmore, says, planned abandonment. Okay? Planned state abandonment. and the entrenchment of this narrow macroeconomic orthodoxy. So without Merck, my contention and my hypothesis is that South Africa lost a lot of its intellectual capacity to challenge inequality at its roots. The second is when we think around inequality. Now, we know that expanded unemployment sits at 42.6%, youth unemployment at 58%. You know, the real numbers, not the massaged, airbrushed figures that make us feel a bit better about ourselves. 55% of the population lives below the poverty line, and nearly 14 million are in food poverty. This is a good moment for us to rethink and to reframe our definitions of poverty. Because there is food poverty. There are people who go to work every day, and yet they are hungry. They don't have enough nutrients. For a family to live well in terms of being able to afford a mortgage, school fees, a family of 5, I think that the estimates are that you need to be earning an income of about 26,000 rands per month on average. Most are at about 5,000 rands. And this is at a time when food, in order to live healthy, nje, was supposed to be spending about 8, 9, 10,000 rands per month on our food. Now, if we're living, if most of us, our incomes are 5,000 rands per month or so, which is about not even a quarter, it's about a fifth of what is optimal, that tells us that there's a big deficit. There is also land poverty, which is an issue that's very close to my heart that I've already alluded to. Landlessness is one of the great legacies and one of the great, it's not even a legacy, it is one of the great travesties. One of the great travesties of the post-1994 dispensation. We cannot be in a situation where we are trickling land 1 grain at a time from the most dispossessed to the ones who are overpossessed and who are now advertising themselves as refugees and accusing us of genocide. The only real genocide here is the genocide of truth, the genocide of memory, the genocide of African people's personhood and the right to reclamation. So then I think the next piece of that is then to rethink not only poverty, but then to reframe the social contract, as Aus Geraldine very aptly said. So in speaking about a renewed social contract, I agree, but it has to be built on a much stronger social wage. Where is the conversation on universal health care that doesn't get Discovery Health up in arms? Free and decommodified education. I appreciate very much your remarks about the curriculum, Aus Geraldine. Why has it taken us this long to be able to rethink, reimagine, and dismantle a curriculum that is essentially built in the image of people who never really liked us? We don't have to be talking about fees must fall, afros must fall. My own children are of the generation of girls who are like, we're wearing this hair like this. If you can't see at the back, you can't see at the back. You will see through my afro. Okay? But when you have school policies that say stuff like, this language is violent, it is exclusionary. It was never for us. Your fringe here. Be serious. Boys mustn't have their hair below their ears. When is his hair going to fall below his ears? Never. So we can see that these are situations, institutions, and foundations which were never built for us. Let's not pretend that these are multiracial schools. They might be multiracial or multicultural. They are monocultural. And the rest of us have to fall in line. Which is why people have gall, teachers have gall to tell children during break time not to speak Sesotho, not to speak isiXhosa. I refused to send one of my children to a particular school because just when we were done with the interview, and I said to her, oh, litsamaile jwang? Was ratas bakase? Basically meaning, how was it? Do you like this place? Do you think you could enjoy this place? The teacher who was interviewing us, just like whiplash. Oh! Do you speak vernacular? I was like, okay, we're done here. This is not the place for my child. So when we're talking about decolonized curriculum, What's the kind of decommodified education that doesn't re-instill and re-traumatize our children into trying to fit into frames that were never built for us? Do we really want to be a nation of palisas? We can't. We can't. And lastly, because I know more is going to come up, the idea of a social wage is not welfare. It's a foundational democratic stabilizer. It is the net that we must all stand on. It is the thing that holds us, that reminds us that we are indeed a nation, that this is a state that cares and loves us, that there are none that can be abandoned and blamed for intergenerational deficits of structural violences and structural failures that date centuries. So I'll leave it there for now.
Okay. Right. Let me give you the numbers. We've got 10 minutes left. Okay.
Oh.
So, so even if we steal a couple of minutes, we're into a time jam. I have lots of questions. I won't do it. I think it's only fair that instead of me putting questions to you, I'd get you to respond to what you've just heard, because I think that would be very original and benefit the audience. So go ahead.
I think so, but I wondered if the audience didn't want to participate.
Well, they will. They'll get their chance just now. Yes.
So I'm not going to respond to everything. And Lebogang and I really have, I think, profound respect and understanding of both our differences as well as where we agree. So there's certain areas that we obviously may have different, shall I call it a nuance or what? It's more than that, yeah. But I think the one thing that we would agree on, or at least I think so, is that there is a need for a fundamental engagement at this point in time that's going to take us into a different space where we clearly will focus on national and social cohesion. And when one looks, and I suppose using the term miracle and miracle workers was probably a bit unfortunate tonight, thinking about it. But you would recall I did have a qualification at the beginning that maybe that is a bit of the view one had at the time, but it was not with a view that it was a wand that was going to make a difference. It's because we were actually involved in ensuring that the transformation that came about, we contributed towards that. So we were not spectators. It was not something that we had heard about. But I think that's not the starting point. So this particular intervention tonight did not intend to cover everything in detail. It did not also in any way invisibilize the 150,000, I think that's children who were detained. As a matter of fact, there were very clear interventions in the 80s to ensure that that was brought to the fore. And I think we agree that the extent of trauma that may be in the DNA of everyone in South Africa is as a result of that past, and you've referred to one part of it. I think none of us at any point, and I actually said it tonight, where I said we underestimated the extent of the impact of our past on us. And I want to give, and I'm sorry that I'm spending too much time on that, I want to give one example. And I think you may have been at the event. You would recall that 5 years ago in 2020, there was a Jerusalemite Palestinian would address the International Women's Day event of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. And she spoke about the impact of occupation on the population as a whole and the psyche of the population. And she says it comes through in the DNA of the people. And in the conclusion, in his closing remarks, it was President Thabo Mbeki who actually said that as South Africans, we have never at that point done sufficient research to look at what the impact of apartheid and colonialism has been on the people of our country, and to the very points you raised about men and what has manifested and all. So I think we acknowledge that. That was a given, that was that one had assumed in making that presentation earlier. On the issue of the two nations, I differ with you. I think there was a need, and that was actually quite a strategic, well, not even strategic, was a philosophical intervention that looked at the reality of the South African economy in order to ensure that there are targeted interventions to take into account what's there. So yes, it's not creating two nations, but it is considering the reality of a formal economy and the informality that's there. That there are different kinds of interventions that could be made to overcome that. I think we should look at all of that, but this is exactly why this discussion is so important. And I think it also, that intervention refused to paper over some of the deep structural differences that are there in the South African economy as a whole. What else should I say? What else should I talk about? I think that as a whole, I would agree that what we have here is a discussion this evening, and I think you're right around the intergenerational part of this discussion that is there. And yes, there were not any winners, but our intention as South Africans and our hope was that all of us would become winners in the end, in the way in which we would build a new South African society. And I think maybe this is the moment to actually ensure that happens. And when you quoted Ben Okri, I thought you were going to a different point. I saw you stopped short, because I think you were also referring to the... I thought you were also referring to probably the quality of leadership is a challenge, if you look at that quote of Ben Okri. But I think at this point I'd want to pause and just open up, because I think
okay, that's
there's
fine.
A lot more
So what we'll do, just a reminder, I mean, there's this audience, there's the audience listening via SAfm radio, there's an audience listening via our social media on the SAfm platforms, and there's an audience listening via SABC+. So all these different groupings, what's the word, like I see you, just so that you know that. I'm just telling you we see you. So we'll get to, in fact, we're going to get to audience participation now. We've got about 15 minutes. But before I do that, maybe just a quick one that I want to just run through all of you, but you're going to give me like a 1 minute answer, right? Because we're out of time. I think that the key point that you spoke about was nation, be a nation builder, right? So, I mean, and you touched on it to a degree, but let's say the practical. What's your practical takeout so that people in this audience and listening on the different streams can say, okay, I want to be a nation builder, and therefore this is what I must do. And I want to put that to all three of you. So where should I start? All right, let's go to
Oh,
the
jeepers. Okay, all right.
So I want to be a nation builder. What should I do? You got a minute or so.
Sure. No, three things. I mean, I think the one thing I would have loved to touch on is in the multilateralism. I think we're in a very difficult trade environment globally. And I think the one element has to be a transformative multilateralism. Multilateralism where developing countries are able to negotiate their needs within that system. And I think South Africa has to be at the beachhead of that, one. Number two, on the land issue, between 1998 and 2001, 20,000 claims by labor tenants were put in. At the end of last year, we had only resolved around 11,000 of those claims. You've got 9,000 after 25 years outstanding. And I think the starting point, certainly in places like KZN and Mpumalanga, is to, as people in the state, we should not have had a situation where you have to even have the Constitutional Court appointing a special master for labor tenants to force provincial land reform authorities to actually give meaningful effect to this idea that people will, especially those who work the land, will have access to it. So I think that's the second one. But the third one I probably want to come to relates to this question of nation building can never be resolved so long as 8 cities occupy 60% of the GDP of the country. 205 local municipalities and 44 districts all compete for 2/5 of the entire share. And I think until we resolve that, it's interwoven into the national question. It's interwoven into this question of race. It's interwoven into this idea that we're going to December now. You know, white people go on holiday, we go home. It's interwoven into all of that. And I think those are the three things we have to do. We've got to resolve the land question. In the first instance, we've got to also resolve this issue around kind of the economics, domestically and internationally. And then I think the third one is you're not going to resolve this unless you deal with the gendered, spatialized, and even the racialized manifestations of inequality.
Okay, point taken. Yours?
So,
nation builder?
For us to be a winning champion nation, the one I think is breaking up the monopolies that control retail, banking, telecoms, food value chains, and all of that. And linked to that is also restructuring food chains so that we can have lower prices of food. We need to go back to our, the wheat boards, poultry boards, price control as well. We've had, some nyaga with the, collusion between some of the major retailers, food retailers, pretending that bread costs way more than it does. We also have to have a cap on what the basket of food, essential foods would cost an average family, a working class family, or even the working poor. As well, and places like Mexico, Ecuador, these are not just pie in the sky. It's happening. And the last for me, I think I already talked on multilateralism. I was at the G20 for some of my many sins and the ritualism around that. Ratings agencies as this kind of fifth pillar that makes us all nervous. When we hear that Fitch and Moody's are coming, we start rafreifa, rafreifa, we start hanging new curtains because they are coming. These anonymous, opaque people are coming. And I really think that those things, those agencies are really an enemy of our policy sovereignty. And I also want us to remember that they are guns for hire. These are basically private consulting agencies. You, me, and the guy next door could set up a ratings agency and begin to also peddle our ideas. And we should be very careful around the way that they have been centered and privileged. We're so excited because now we're no longer as junky as we were before. And it's good news, for all sorts of reasons. It is good news, but that cannot be what we build a nation on.
Yeah, it's a good point, very much so. Right, let me do this. So there's more to come from all three of you, and I know we could speak for 2 hours, but we can't, right? The plan is to take questions from the audience, right? We'll start with 3, and I need to see how we can manage time. So 3 from the audience, and then Andile will help me. We'll get 3 online, people who've actually WhatsApped or sent a message via SAfm radio, and there's 3 online. So let's start with the 3 from the audience here. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, right? Hopefully we'll get to others as well. 1, 2, 3 for now, right? Can you guys help me with a mic there? The runners here. So have we got 2 mics so we can just speed up the process there? So, okay, your hand's persistent. We'll do 4, right? Okay, it's just you have to be persistent. So that's 1. And we've got the 2 people at the back there. Yeah, 1 next to you. Let's get it right. 2, 3, and 4 over here, right? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I made a mistake, just correct me there. Have we got another mic so we can just move on quickly with that? Can you give it to the others, to the other people too? Right. Now, can I just ask you to help us with this one? Time is a problem, right? If you can make one specific point, and it should not be more than a minute, please. To all of you, right? Because we genuinely have a problem. And if you want to direct it to one person, it'll actually help as well. Thank you.
Ashraf, thank you very much, and thank you for the fellow South Africans in here. My name is Miles Budu. My full name is Golden Miles Budu. But Golden Miles is a slave name. Golden Miles is an imperialist name. Golden Miles is a Negro name. And I ain't no Negro. I don't know nothing about slavery. But Golden Miles is an apartheid name, and I know about apartheid. My real name, which was given to me by my late grandmother, is Hovugu Ibambe Wemakita Spegane Budu. Now, Budu is the real thing. Of course, we Sam Zilin. This afternoon or this morning, we went to a session at Birchley Hotel, which was hosted by the Premier. The title was Fighting Corruption, Promoting Integrity, and I didn't hear them talking about fighting crime, violence, and the causes thereof that I didn't hear. And the causes is unemployment, it is poverty, it is vulnerability and economic inequality. And wherever I go, I don't hear them talking about fighting the causes. Number 2, I haven't heard about the consequence management for crime, violence, and so on. The consequence management is to arrest, is to charge, is to prosecute, is to send to prison, because that is where these guys belong. Ask me as a prisoners' rights activist. Let me conclude by saying I heard something about the land, and I have got no time to tell the audience what Farrakhan said when he came here in 1996 about the land, which is still in the hands of the whites. The diamonds are still in the hands of the whites. The gold is still in the hands of the whites. Everything of value is still in the hands of the whites. The power of military might is still in the hands of the whites. And the white world has to pay. We know who the white world is. They're nowadays called the Stellenbosch Mafia. And we know that they want to come to the party, but they don't know who to talk to because everybody wants to talk to them. Let me conclude, because conclude I shall. Crime, violence, causes thereof is something that needs to be put on the table fairly and squarely. And thank you very much, Dr. Peko. We're talking about L-A-N-D, the land, not L-A-N-T. And I thank you.
All right, got that. I take it that's a comment, not a question, right? I don't know if anybody wishes to respond. I take it as a comment. Right, number 2, who's number 2 here? Right, go for it. And again, maximum 1 minute, please, right?
Good evening. Yeah, it happens with us all the time when we have to speak. I was writing a whole book here because it was very interesting comments. And firstly, I would like to greet our esteemed guest. I'm a Khoisan, you won't sometimes understand what I'm saying. Ek kan nie reg Engels praat nie. Want ek is 'n Khoi en 'n San. I'm from the Hesekwa Royal Kingdom in the Western Cape. I came especially to hear my mom speaking here tonight. But we are talking here about Rainbow, a winning champion nation. We will only achieve that when we embrace the Khoi and the San nation, so that we can become one. We are speaking about one nation, and we should live up to that. where we say that we are a rainbow nation. But that's not what I want to say. Is I think we are using a phrase in the Khoi language to say, we say here, Atuma Tama Hamske. It means our struggle as the Khoi sons are still continuing. The other struggle that was from 1994, that one might have ended, but our struggle as the Khoi son is just beginning with this new dispensation where we are not being accepted. I am pleading that we must relook and revisit the Freedom Charter with all its promises of jobs for all and houses for all, because now at this point in time, we have been harassed and we don't get what belongs to us as the Khoisan nation.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Right, so that's number 3, and then we'll come to you, number 4, right? Okay, go for it.
Thank you very much. My name is Andile Kotashe, former son of the SAPC. So I'm home here. Ashraf, I rise to make a comment regarding corruption. It is very unfortunate that when the discourse on governance is being made, it is cued from the prism of corruption. Corruption permeates every aspect of governance, from the top to the bottom. To that extent, I wish to invite this audience, for those who haven't, to please read the book by the Kenyan author, Jonathan Gotham. I'm not sure of the surname. The title of the book is It's Our Turn to Eat. Because our turn to eat has become a metaphor for what is obtaining in our country. In my language, Xhosa, we say "Kwavula's buqe." You know, it's free for all. Can we stand up and be counted, and let not our name and our identity always be associated with corruption and misgovernance and malfeasance? The 3 cardinal pillars of the Constitution, that is equality, freedom, and human dignity, cannot find expression in society if a society is riddled with corruption. And the social contract that we're talking about becomes a misnomer, because the social contract becomes eroded if our society is riddled with corruption. I submit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, that's another comment. Right, let's get to the last one for now, right? Go for it.
Thank you, Ashraf. Thank you, Mama Geraldine, and the panel. My name is Fez Lekona. I come from Soweto, Orlando East. And I have no claim to fame, but I will say my passion is social justice. And here I want to talk about one element which is part of Mama Geraldine's theme, which is unemployment and poverty. We know, I'm going to summarize what I've basically taken notes of to ask my question. Firstly, the issue of poverty, we should accept that it is the one factor that is the source of all social ills that we have in South Africa. Be it corruption, anything that you can go, crime and other things, gender-based violence, is poverty, is the number one factor. And what is the cause of this poverty? We have an unemployment rate that is, I think, intolerable, which is done not by accident. I believe it is intentional by somewhere, some stakeholders somewhere. But what does it do? Is that one of the way to bring unemployment is that the people who are in the space of employment are actually playing gatekeepers to employment of the people that have to be absorbed. Mama Geraldine spoke about absorbing new recruits into the employment space by also creating those agreements in the labor space. we look at, we have labor laws. One of them, instead of the BEE, we have the Employment Equity Act, which is there. And instead of being used and enforced properly by our justice system and other role players, it is actually more manipulated to simply benefit people on the skills development provisions and tax breaks, instead of getting the objective of Employment Equity Act when it was placed in place. So those issues of not enforcing such a law are the ones that we can call exclusionary measures, or the moving sense of exclusion that you spoke about, Mama Geraldine. So if we look at it right now, I've got 3 stakeholders that I want us maybe to look into.
We'll be allowed 30 seconds extra, but it can't be more than that. You
That's
must
fine.
understand that.
That's fine. Sorry.
So can I give you 30 seconds to make a point,
Excellent.
please?
Yeah. We've got the academia, we've got the justice system, and then we've got our media, who has to look into this and see to it that we are moving with what we have as provision instead of creating new laws, but to actually have what we have being used properly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, for adhering to that at the end. Much appreciated, right? Look, I tell you what, there are, because of time, we just can't take many of the online things. It'll just take far too long. Perhaps I'll just get each one of you to make a final point, but I want to go back to the first point of your discussion, right? Which is the issue of inequality. Now, I think you made the point, or probably you did, in fact, about the impact of living in an occupied nation. I think example was the Palestinian story, and that we haven't really spent time doing the same thing in South Africa, right? So, if I can run through, starting from, well, all three of just one question. What impact? We know what inequality is. I think your example that you gave was just beautiful about some people go on holiday, other people go home, and that just sums it up. But what impact has inequality had on the lives of a South African over the years? And I'd like to get all three of your thoughts on that same thing, just to understand the human side of inequality.
Well, I think, Ashraf, it's quite clear that the kind of inequality that you find in South Africa means that a very large bulk of your population has no vested or embedded interest in the society. I mean, we can talk as much as we want here, but all of us saw what happened in July 2021, where people were willing, at the risk of being arrested or even being flighted on primetime television, to risk all of that to join an action, which some people defined as an insurrection or whatever. But it was a flashpoint. And many of us have often argued that flashpoint, were it to materialize to its logical conclusion, July 2021 would be made to look like a Sunday school picnic. And part of the reason for that is because inequality, and the literature shows this, is not only linked to the question of corruption that my brother is raising, it's also linked to the type of violence that you see. In South Africa, the violence you see, someone will break into your house, not to necessarily take stuff, but to maim you. There's a psychosocial dynamic to it. And I think that part of even how we have a discussion about inequality or even anti-corruption politics is to first accept that settler colonialism and apartheid were corrupt systems. And that there is there's no vacuum in history. You inherit a particular state that had the certain trappings of power, that had a particular veneer and vestiges of colonialism. And colonialism is an exclusive system. There are those who will live in the manor, and there are those who will sit, as Mepeko was saying, as slaves, whether chattel slaves or not. And I think that if we are meaningfully interested in nation building, part of it is to also go back into that history. One last point. A lot of us don't know, to my brother's point about First Nations, before 1830, which was the formal end of slavery in South Africa, that the largest import into the Cape was of slaves, was of people, right? And unfortunately, that egg is broken. You can't unbreak it. But I think even how we cast identity becomes quite an important thing in an unequal society. And yeah, I'll leave it there. But I think on inequality, there's a lot of things we could do. Part of it is pre-distributional things. Fix your education, fix your social wage, fix the first 10,000 days of children, fix so many of these things. I mean, if you talk about stunting, there are young people in this country, just because of food insecurity, there's more month than food, right? You get to the end of the month, there's no food. And many of the people in their first 10,000 days of their life are effectively wasted thereafter, precisely because you have not resolved some of these issues. And I think, if I need to participate in a labor market to survive, then it says something about the humanity of our society.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm being low-toned, but I just want people to reflect on what that really means. Very intentionally so, right? Your thoughts on...
I want to pick up on what Aya said.
On equality, yeah.
I want to pick up on that. Ditto, ditto, ditto. The children in the first 10,000 days. So in my role as a commissioner, National Planning Commissioner, I have a good colleague who always talks about stunting.
10,000 days, or is it the first 1,000 days? Sorry.
Well, it's 1,000 days,
First
but it's
1,000
okay.
days, okay.
Like plus
Just
minus
wanted to
three,
make
plus
sure.
minus 3 years. But to that point, the days before that, so the life of the parents, the household. So, I think that my concern is that we shouldn't act as though these babies come from the sky. They come into a household. They come into society, a community that is already born into despair and already born into very negated and negative life outcomes. And what this happens is that then your choices and your outlook of possibility is diminished from birth. It's diminished as a toddler. You already know what the answer is. No, you can't have the ice cream. No, you can't have the toy. Not even that. No, you can't have the second helping. And sometimes you can't even have the first helping. It's a terrible message for a 2-year-old, a toddler, to know, no, you can't. You can only eat once a day.
And that shapes your thinking.
It shapes your thinking. It shapes your realm of possibility. And to add to what Aya was saying, it also builds a level of desperation and a sense that there's nothing to lose. So I break into your house, so what? Who am I? Because I've been told and diminished and disrespected and unseen and unheard by society. And because I've been I've been fed a lie that if I didn't work hard enough, and if I didn't pull myself up by my bootstraps, this is all my fault. And I've read too much, I've watched too much Oprah Winfrey, who also feeds into this kind of bootstraps mentality of exceptional blackness, but not everybody is the exceptional black, right? And that, the bootstraps also assume that you have shoes to begin with, to pull yourself up by. So by the time you're breaking into the house, shoeless, desperate, with a deep pathologized relationship to violence, not because you're a bad person, but because this is what, you're carrying, it's late. It's late. I hate to be, doom and gloom, but there are ways out of it. One is an excellent healthcare system. We have to have an excellent healthcare system. Yeah, we can't have the 2 billion looted. Apparently, even the couplets were looted from the same hospital. I mean, everything is being looted. We can't just have that. The second is excellent education. Excellent public education where you don't have to go to Curo and outsource what should be a state function to Curo, to Gai, or to any of the saints if you have the means. And the third is also excellent infrastructure to get to and from places. I think I decry the fact that we don't have public transport in this country. We literally don't. And the fact that many of the trains have now been demobilized and there's increased traffic on roads with the trucks, there's a palpable difference in the traffic volumes, is also a whole standard of life, quality of life thing. We can't spend our lives commuting. Cannot have a situation where people are spending a third, up to 40% of their income commuting from one place to 3 taxis, waking up at 4 in the morning, only to be called lazy. Angeke. There's nothing like lazy. And yet the value of their effort is not commensurate to what they attain and the asset base they leave for their children.
Yeah, and I mean, I could respond to that for half an hour, but just that broad point, the vote hasn't changed that. You know, that's another whole conversation. Right, your last words on inequality and living with inequality here?
Yeah, I mean, the impact of inequality in South Africa.
I think your mic, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You see, when there's inequality, you don't
Shop
have a mic.
Stewart's
I mean,
voice.
You should say rally voice.
Okay, okay.
So I think listening to the inputs that have been made, I mean, the reality is that inequality creates a vicious circle. I mean, there's no question around it. And it's a vicious, self-enforcing cycle. Poverty equates with poor education. I mean, that's a reality. Unemployment, low income is associated with poor health, crime and instability, and it perpetuates poverty. So, I mean, I'm just capturing what has been raised here. So breaking the cycle is what is the single biggest challenge in South Africa today. I mean, there's no question. It doesn't only require economic reforms and pro-poor growth policies, as was stated, but it also means we've got to address the structural legacies of apartheid. We can't pretend it wasn't there, and we should also, and here when one talks about the structural legacies, it's what's there in education, health, and spatial planning. And it's to the issue of transport. People having to leave home at 4 to get at work, and so on. So I think until this is achieved, it will continue to be a defining feature of South African society. So I just want to quickly go back to the one point that was raised around it's our time to eat. I think the point of the discussion this evening, this dialogue, was precisely saying, let's see this as a moment to make a break from that past. And hence, in the intervention I made, when I spoke about the commissions and the panels and all that kind of thing, I think we should see that this difficult moment probably as a bit of a painful beginning. Look at it as this, because for the first time, we can't say we don't know. We say that we have a shared and a factual understanding for, let's call it our anger. So let's use it. Let's channel it. Because I think as we listen to the discussion, we're not only looking at what should be done better, it's actually saying, what will we do better? So, as Ashraf, to your point earlier, you asked everyone else, what is the one thing to be done? And I think, you know, I spoke about 4 pillars. You know, the soul pillar, the issue of forging a shared identity, but also looking at what else is to be done to make a difference. But I want to throw out provocatively something on what I refer to as a talent pillar. And take education as a given. Take healthcare as a given. Get, you know, better public services as a given. But we've got a very huge youth unemployment problem. And we're not going to solve that if tomorrow we're going to arrest everybody who's been involved in corruption. We actually need to look at a catalytic program for youth. And maybe we should ask a question whether we shouldn't do what some other countries have done in the South as well. Maybe we need some kind of national conscription system. And it doesn't need to be military conscription. It can be non-military, where we say for 2 years, we take, you know, our youth and look at how we skill them. Give them vocational education. Bring them into whether it's, you know, in different programs, because there's such a huge group of unemployed young people that we need to do something that's catalytic. And I mean, Defence does have facilities. And there was initially an attempt to start it, but maybe we should do it. But as I said, it could even be non-military. Doesn't need to be military. The issue, however, is somebody has to pay. So the question is, where's the money going to come from? And we hence need to look, where does it come from in the public purse? And how do we deal with it? And how do we come together to resolve this? So it's just throwing out one small provocation. And it's not, I mean, you've got to deal with some larger structural issues as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Well, listen, yeah. What's that phrase? Show me the money. It meant something else, but it applies to all of us. Applause for all three of the panelists in this case here. Thank you so much. And naturally, we could talk more, but maybe the challenge for all of us is, in fact, we can talk longer, just not here. You can take it back. Take it back to your homes, have your lunches and your suppers and your social media platforms and whichever other platforms you have, and raise all these issues and more that has been asked. I mean, I could ask another 20 questions, but there just isn't enough time. Now, we're almost done. We've got about 15 minutes, but it's handover time, gifts time, right? So first of all, if we can just stand up, because I want us to take a picture of all of us, and I don't want to be excluded. Exclusion is a big problem. You know that. Right, if we can just do that so we don't lose that opportunity.
And your 25,000 rand.
Exactly. The data.
In airtime.
The data.
It's not real
exactly.
money.
It's not money. It's not even food vouchers. You should be in the
Airtime
middle,
is?
please. You should be in the middle.
Yeah. Okay. And as we do that, let me just remind you, of course, up to now, for the listeners, all this has been live broadcast on SAfm and the various platforms. But as we get now to the handover of the prizes and the gifts side, that's not going to be covered. So to the audience listening on SAfm radio, on our social media platforms, on the SABC Plus platforms, it's a case of goodbye and good night to all of you. But you can still, by the way, tweet out all the comments, just SAfm annual lecture, or I see people are doing that, or SAfm annual lecture 2025. Please share your thoughts. I certainly will look out for that. Right, so we got the pictures, right? Yeah. Can I do this? I mean, I want to do that one, just pointing out all of them. Yeah. Check them out. Peace. That's not a Trump point finger. He does that.
Oh, my goodness.
Not at all. Let me just say that, not at all. Right. I'd like to now have a seat once again, right? We're almost done. I'd like to now call upon to hand over a plaque to Dr. Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi, and I'd like to call upon the SABC board chairperson, once again, Dr. Katu Ramakumba, if you can come up, please. Thank you. Maybe if I can, yeah, let's do that. You may want to just step slightly in front there. Yeah, thank you.
This is nice.
This is also going in line there. And there's more, right? You need many hands, you see? Right, thank you so much, Chair, thank you. Right, you may have a seat. Your night's not yet over, I think. Just have a seat. Right, there's now a handover for Dr. Lebogang Peku from the SABC Group Executive Corporate Affairs and Marketing, and that's Temba Kwejela. Sorry, thank you. You were the first person I met today, right? So they were. Oh, there we are. This matches your colors. I've noticed that. You see the color combination, dress, everything, all in sync. Yeah. There we are. Thank you for that, Temba. And then another award to Ayabonga Kale, who's the given on behalf by Tenda Matore, the SABC Acting Chief Financial Officer. Thank you. There we are.
Thank you. Thank you, CFO. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is this a check?
I thought you were going to say that. It's not even a brown envelope. I've noticed that here. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that would be
Super.
nice.
Right, thank you. Thanks for that. Then there are gifts to partners from the Baroka Group, the CEO, Mr. Ratau Impatlele, right? And there's another gift if we've got the Indaba Hotel and Spa Sales and Marketing Manager, Sharon Hoenig, if she's up here. And Randir, if I can call you up there. Oh, there we are. Oh, looking for you. Randir is the marketing manager for the SABC Fortune Combo Marketing. Fortune is a collection of different radio stations. Let me just step away. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I see. Okay, fine. Thank you. There we are. That's from Indaba. Thank you. Thank you so much. Right, and we almost finished, Enkla. I know that. Now the giveaways. So who didn't give their business cards? Come on. You lost out big time, man. Even a Spaza business card, just handwritten, would have worked. So there are, as I mentioned, 25,000 rands to be given to 2 people who've given their cards today. So if there's like 200 people here, you've got a massive chance to win this. 25,000 rand in airtime. It's not a check, okay? So who's going to do the giveaway? Right. Andile, who's the acting program manager at SAfm. Andile, let me step out of the way and you can do that. Right. Da-da-da-da. There we are.
Tami Nomazele from Chartered Property Empire, who wins the first 25,000 in airtime on SAfm.
And where is Tommy? Come up. I just wonder what you're going to use it for. It could be an interview. It could be... Just don't waste it on calling in and speak for 25 minutes, right? There's other ways to do it. There we are. All right, and then we have another winner. Now, who may that be? And everybody's got their mixes. Yeah.
We've got, we've got Sibongile Nkosi from KwaTsuduza Laundry and Cleaning.
Yeah, there we are.
Will you take it on her behalf? Yes. Are we sure that it is a representative? Yes, okay. All right, in front of the people. All right, thank you.
You do realize, I mean, you've got a laundry and cleaning business, and the issues of laundering in global politics is a big issue, right? I mean, I'm just putting it out there so you know, right? Okay, there's no more prizes, right, Andila? That's it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now the final word. Have I missed anything? No, I haven't. The final word, Anthony Sogler was the business manager for the SABC Fortune Combo. And I made the point, the Fortune Combo is a collaboration of 3 or 4 different radio stations that make up the SABC. And Anthony, or Tony, is the business manager for it. Tony, where are you? Oh, there we are. Right, you got the final word. I wonder what the final word says.
I guess the final word is final word, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a very, very long day, but a very fruitful, thought-provoking day it has been. Evening, ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the close of the 3rd annual SAfm lecture, it's my distinguished honor to extend our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who was here today, to everyone who's listening to us on radio, who's streaming us on SABC Plus and all our social media platforms. Every year I look forward to our lecture to expand my vocabulary. It's one of the things that I look forward to. And I must say today it's been one of those days where the vocab has been expanded on. A little about 3.5 years ago, I sat with my team and I said to them, SAfm is at that time about 86 years old. We're actually turning 90 next year. SAfm is the oldest radio station in the country. And I said to them, guys, what legacy are we going to leave behind as a team? But more importantly, what can we do to expand the discourse in our country, intellectual discourse? And we thought, let's start a lecture. And so, as mentioned, we had Chief Justice Mogoeng, and as the chair can remember, it was after the lecture, we had a couple of phone calls, right? And then last year we had Dr. Pando, and this year, Dr. Geraldine. And I must say, a couple of weeks ago, we were at the 23rd annual Nelson Mandela lecture. And after the lecture, we sat down and we were having tea, and Dr. Geraldine was there, and so was Dr. Pando. And Dr. Geraldine made a comment about how she is not looking forward to the lecture because she has to follow the footsteps of Dr. Pando, right? I must say, though, you've made a fantastic job. We very, very much, and let's give a round of applause again. I think it was absolutely fantastic. So, as I said, please allow me to express our heartfelt appreciation to you, Dr. Geraldine. Thank you for your profound insights, your clarity of thought, and the depth of wisdom you've shared with us today. To our leaders, the SABC, to our board members, led by Dr. Katu, who recently became a doctor, so we've proud to call you doctor. Thank you very much for your support. I know at our very first lecture you were there supporting us, and we appreciate what it is that you guys do for us. Without our leaders supporting us in what we do, we're not able to carry on doing what we do. So to the foreign board members, please pass our sincere gratitude to them. To our SABC executives, our GCO in absentia, Mr. Namsa Chabedi, to our COO, Mr. Benza, our group execs who are here today again supporting us, Mr. Gwajela, thank you very much for your support. We were talking about how we were at school earlier on. We studied together at UPE way back in the early 2000s, right? We're not going to relieve UPE. That was when we were still at UPE. Now it is Nelson Mandela. So there's a connection there, right? To Mr. Matori, our acting CFO, thank you very much for your time as well. I know there's an early morning meeting tomorrow, so we have to be out here very soon, but appreciate your support. To the management, various managers at the ACBC, Moni, who's here as well, thank you for your time, really appreciate it. To our radio head marketing manager, Lydia, who's outside there, thank you very much for your support as well. To our discussants, Dr. Lebu, always great listening to you, and always great hearing your thoughts, because you're one that makes sure we hear your thoughts, and that's one thing that is great about you. Conversations you have with Ashraf, like he mentioned on air, is one that we look forward to quite very often. So thank you very much for not only provoking us to ask questions, but ask the right and relevant questions. To Ayabonga, we go way back. I remember stealing him from Power FM a couple of years back when I was still working at Metro. We had a conversation about joining the SABC, and I'm glad he joined us. And great young man, great wealth of knowledge that he has, and he is one of those guys that make our country better. And as young leaders, we look up to guys like Ayabonga, and long may it continue. To our guests in attendance here today, from government institutions, civil, public, as well as private organizations, those listening online, SMEs, entrepreneurs, and to other divisions, thank you very much for your time. To our partners, the Morocco Group, our chauffeur travel division, an example of black excellence, Dr. Ratau. I think he drove our VIP guests, and please just stand up and everyone give round of applause again. Really appreciate what you do for us. Yourself and Martin. Is Martin around as well? Martin here. Thank you very much for always opening and being available to assist us as a station. Every time we come through to you, you always come with open hands, and we really appreciate that. Thank you so much. To the operational team at SAfm, to my management team, Andile and Randy, and to the whole team. They've worked so hard in the past 3 months to put this together. Please allow me to just name them by name. Tuli, Mbusi at the back over there, Mavusana at the back, Clinton, Wangani, Bafedile, our guys who were helping us from Radio 2000, Daddy, together with Temba and Mlu. Guys, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for the efforts put into tonight. Our station talent, Ashraf, and as I say that, I'm going to ask the guys to please hand over Ashraf his certificate. He's done a fantastic job tonight. Please, let's give him a round of applause as well.
So I get a certificate. What does it say? The certificate says, you're the host of the National Pulse, 3 to 6. Please come to work tomorrow.
Thank you very much for always being available.
Thank you.
Putting your hand up as well.
Thank you.
Kathy was here. She was actually in Durban early on. Flew in, came through, spent some time, and then she has to be in air tomorrow. So she left. Bridget was here as well. I'm not sure if she's still around. Is Bridget still here? I think she left as well. She has to be on air as well. So support from our talent. Thank you very much. The guys behind the scenes, our producers, our technical producers, who you never get to see very much, but they put a lot of work in behind the scenes. So thank you very much to them as well. Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this is that next year, we're looking forward to another one, a massive one, a big one, because it's our 90th birthday. Like I said, we're celebrating 90 years. And maybe we might call upon you again, Dr. Geraldine, to... A special word of thanks goes out to each and every one of our guests in the room tonight. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your presence and your continued support of this important platform of a national dialogue and increasing what we do as a radio station. As SAfm, we remain committed to fostering conversations that matter, conversations that illuminate, provoke thought leadership, and strengthen our democracy. Today's lecture has reaffirmed why this commitment is so important to us as a radio station. Once again, thank you so very much, Dr. Fraser Moleketi, and thank you to all of you for being part of this lovely, lovely day, this moment. We look forward to welcoming you again next year as we continue this journey of thought leadership and public engagement. Here's to 2026 annual SAfm lecture as we carry on having conversations that move us. Have a great evening. God bless you. Drive safely, and hope to see you guys on the airwaves. Like we say, excuse me. Let's have the conversation. Right. Ashraf, back to you.
Wait. We said final word early. If Miles Buddha can have the second last words, why can't I have the final words? No, listen, I must tell you, when you said next year is the 90th birthday.
Yes, right? It is, yes.
And you said it's going to be a big one. I'm telling myself, and I'm making nixes, I said, dear God, let it not be Donald Trump. I'm just saying that.
And the funny thing is, that's what the guy said.
No. But listen, I want to just leave you with this one. We did say earlier on, I mean, we are privileged by being here. So just give yourself the biggest applause you can get. Please do that. Let's go for it. Woo! Right. And here's the last thing I'll leave you with, right? A lot has been said. I've got just 2 questions to ask you. Don't answer it now. Think about it for yourself, right? Number one, of all the things we spoke about South Africa, number one, what is your personal purpose? What is your personal purpose, number one? And number 2, what do you think is South Africa's national purpose? And number 3, how do you align your personal purpose to the national purpose? That should keep you awake all night, so best you go away now. Thank you.
Shingaira Maria Newe.
Hey.